And welcome to the hot Bizfluent Podcast, where we get all up in your business. So let's talk. Today's guests are brought to you by Crush City Realty Group, your premier Houston real estate experts, and luxury real estate agent Alyssa Emmons, where everything she touches turns to sold. And finally, Covo Capital, fast, flexible financing for all your commercial lending needs. This podcast is for informational purposes only. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the Bizfluent Podcast or management. Don't forget to stay to the end to find out how to get some of our amazing merch. Now let's get down to business.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Thursday morning, bright and early, 5 a.m. No, I did not record this at 5 o'clock in the morning. I am not that crazy and I am not that motivated. However, last week was a pretty rough week. I'm sure every single one of you guys saw that we had an additional run of our season 2. Let me get episode 2. We get Josh on with us. So today we are missing Miss Alyssa Emmons. She wound up having an event that went a lot longer than she had expected, and things happen, unfortunately, in the business world. It is fluid. Thank God we are fluid and flexible as well. So, dude, today we got a pretty special guest, man.
Yeah, I'm excited, although I'm always excited. So
you are always excited.
But this one is a special guest. We've had several CEOs before, presidents, owners, SBA lenders, all types of people. Today is going to be a little bit different in that this will be our first company that is a manufacturer's rep company. For those that don't know the side of manufacturing that does this, all these manufacturing companies generally get sales reps as well as their in-house reps to come and sell. And this is actually family. This is my cousin Cathy, who is coming to us from California. And she started this company a number of years ago, Elrepco Inc., and it grew it into what it is today. And she's the president and founder of Elrepco Inc. So let's bring her on and get her to tell us a little bit about her story.
Cathy, welcome to the podcast. How have you been?
Very good. Thank you.
So let's
all
start
5 minutes.
Right. Let's start off with something super easy. Give us a quick rundown of Elrepco. Sorry, that's ELREPCO. Elrepco. How you got your start? How long you've been doing this? And what got you from there, or from where you were to there?
Okay. So first of all, I didn't found the company. I actually came to the company as a salesperson back over 30 years ago. And the two owners founded it. They were one of the top reps in the business. They always had a flagship line, Toshiba, which is semiconductor and hard drives and those kind of things. So I came on board when there was barely any women. In fact, I think there was one other woman in the business. And especially that didn't have an engineering degree. So I was one of the few women in the business. And within a couple of years, I became their top salesperson. And then over the next 20 years, I bought out the partners, and now I run the company. And so I've changed it quite a bit. We've added a lot of lines. We're very fortunate. We're one of the top of what we do. And we have a great team. So I'm very, very blessed.
So tell us a little bit about how you, since I made the big mistake of saying founder, but you did take it from a number of years ago to now. And so tell us what got you into that, especially being a men-driven industry, and what was the interest in electrical components?
Okay, so I was in electrical components with a large company called Avnet as a sales manager, but I always wanted to be a rep because reps made the most money. Yep. And so my goal is to get there, but it's also the hardest because if you're not successful, you don't make money. If you're successful, you make lots of money. So that was my goal, and I accomplished it. And it's just an amazing business. You're calling on all the who's, the Googles, the Metas, the Amazons, anybody in the Bay Area that we call on, Tesla. And so it's always so exciting because even though you're not allowed to talk about it, you know what the products are going to do before anybody else. And so you're part of helping them design the product with your products. So it's one of the most exciting things I've ever done.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where,
So
you know,
when
you talked
so real quick,
a little bit about you talked a little bit about seeing the things ahead of time. AI is a big deal right now. How do you see AI kind of affecting your business and industry going forward?
All of high tech was in a, like, I would say, a recession over the last year, except for the last 2 quarters. And AI actually brought us out of that. AI is like .com was 30 years ago. People, especially the hyperscalers, like the Googles and the Amazons and the Metas and all, are all investing in AI. And we see a lot of startups investing in AI as well. And so the products we sell, like a hard drive that stores that stores everything, all your data, SSDs that do the same thing, optical transceivers, all those kind of products go in to the data center that drives AI. So that's a really, really hot market. And it's exploding right now. In fact, people are probably overhiring right now just to get people with an AI background.
Did you say overhiring?
Yes. Like they did, during COVID, right? They overhired and brought way more people than they needed. Now they're just desperately hiring AI people as quick as they can in tech.
Yeah, if you just say AI, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh."
Yes. And have you used it yourself? Have you gone on Gemini or Chat and used it?
I actually am a pro subscriber for ChatGPT.
Okay. So just an example, one of the guys that works for me, one of my VPs, we have Intel as a line, Intel Optics, and he wanted to chat to write up, why they're good and why they're the leader and all that. And his data was totally inaccurate. I did mine on Gemini, which was then barred, and mine was totally up to date. And we didn't realize it, but Microsoft was 2 years behind. So the data is 2 years behind. So if you want the most accurate, you want to get to Gemini.
Really? So, I mean, obviously you're I've never actually even tried Gemini. Now, supposedly with ChatGPT 4.0, like I'm up to date all the way through September of 2024.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm talking about the free service.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the free service I know is definitely September 2022. I don't know why September is their year, their delineating year, but for some reason, September 2022 is the latest one. So when I upgraded to Pro, it's supposed to have the most up to date.
Cool.
And it's like $19.99 a month or something.
Not bad.
And every time I turn around, I find out more information. Like I didn't realize that it would actually analyze data. So I can drop a spreadsheet into it and have it analyze data, produce sheets, produce graphics and charts and everything out of that data. It's amazing. Every time I turn around, I'm learning more and more about it.
But you never want to put anything confidential in there because then everybody has access to it, right?
Yeah. So definitely no social security numbers.
Or any of your private data. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just started doing SBA projections on there. It's amazing what that thing can come up with. Just giving it a city, metrics, demographics, and boom, it's off to the races.
So speaking of AI and how much you talk about it, and Josh and I have talked about it with a couple of business owners, how we use it in our businesses and how it's expanding, ever expanding. One of the things that I find more often is that people are actually like, they think it's making us more lazy as opposed to being more productive. And what's your opinion on that? Because I think sometimes it does make people more lazy. So it's funny you brought up a faith-based community that you're a part of, and so I'd never want to really consider myself a preacher. I'm definitely not a pastor, but I preach on the fourth Sunday of every month at my church.
Oh, nice.
And so faith-based groups mean a lot to me, but I've actually heard of pastors that have used AI to write sermons for them. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, that it's kind of gross.
It is gross. Because it should be.
So what he's asking is, have you seen the negative of AI in your industry as well?
I'm sure it is, not in our company because we're really careful how we use it. For example, we want to find out if, a Uber or a LinkedIn or somebody does their own data center, right? Because we sell into the data center. So we'll just go into Gemini, or in your case, chat, and put in there, do they have their own data center? And it gives us all that data. Now, if we didn't have it, it's almost impossible to find out unless you reach somebody at the customer that will verify that. So that kind of data it's good for. But you're absolutely right. I've even heard of students in college using it instead of doing the homework and researching. And that's not good. Yeah. So it will make some people lazy.
And you can tell.
So there's two things. So two things you brought up. One I already missed. When I was trying to interrupt Josh earlier, you did key to question. But the one that you just said, really, especially in my industry and Josh's industry on top of that. So you're actually using Gemini as almost like using it like a skip tracing type kind of ability to find out where people are getting their data and where their data centers are, whether they're actually in-house data centers or if they're farmed out.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. It's amazing. Huh. You can find out. I mean, and I would say it's 99% accurate.
Wow.
It saves us
pretty amazing.
Hours and hours and hours.
That's insane. And so that's where the benefit comes, right? Like is the fact that AI can actually provide you with more time because you're not having to analyze the data. It's doing people don't understand that if you've never had to create a database, man, the work to get every information, like for me personally, if I wanted to pull, which I've already started, if I wanted to pull a list of every commercial property here in Seabrook, Texas, where I live, like, I mean, we're talking, this is going to take me weeks.
Right.
And I live in a small city of only 14,000 people. Like, and it would take me weeks to come up with probably 400 commercial properties. And if I could get Gemini to do it, I'd stop paying ChatGPT in a heartbeat.
I bet you can.
You might have converted.
Yeah, you might have. I've never even heard of Gemini, which is not insane.
We're so behind the times, JP.
Dude,
it used to be called Bard.
Now we've talked about the intangible software, and you deal in components. What do you see on the component side? Do you see any big advances coming down the pipeline for components in the market of components, electrical components?
Well, I would say yes in SSDs and hard drives. That's the storage part of it. The densities are going really high, but it also creates a power issue. I mean, if you look at what AI takes, the power is just incredible. I mean, it will take probably all the electricity California has for data centers if they have AI. So
hold on, that's not fair. California just doesn't have enough power, period.
That's true. We don't. But I mean, even if we did, it's crazy.
They better find it.
Yeah.
And you have to cool that down. So we have another line, Fujikura, which does liquid cooling, which cools the whole system down so that it's not, burning up and that kind of thing. So heat's a big issue now with AI and all that storage you put in there. Like we have, hard drives that are 24 and going up 36 terabyte. They're huge, right?
Wow. But I mean, what size buses are you using? Is there 10 gig buses now? Or are they terabyte buses? Have we moved up to terabyte buses?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So
it's good to sell those. They're very expensive.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to computer stuff. And so up until the last computer I bought, and it's when I first got into real estate 7 years ago, I got a Microsoft Surface because I didn't want something that was a real laptop. I hate laptops, honestly. I really do. I was a gamer as a kid, and so I grew up in that .com era, right? So like I graduated high school in 1999. I'd never owned, from that day forward, I had never owned a computer that I didn't personally build. And I laugh. The very first computer I ever owned in my house, our family computer was an Intel Pentium 2 75 megahertz processor with I think I had a, oh my gosh, I think I had a 32 gig hard drive and
back then it was all hard drives.
Yeah, 4 megs of RAM. Yeah, the old school super thick platter drives.
Heavy.
Like, yeah, and there's only like a 3.5-inch drive still, but it was those big thick platters.
Now it's all SSDs.
Yeah, and so now the second computer I've ever bought in my adult life period, I bought an Asus gaming laptop specifically because I do some video editing for the podcast and such, and that Microsoft Surface that I had just did not have the power or the cooling. That was another big issue, was the cooling, and I needed something with active cooling that was still very portable.
See, and I'm not a nerd, but it still blows my mind away when I watch some of these the builds of these gaming desktops that now have the liquid cooling in them, and I'm like, that's not something. I used to throw stuff into water and have it blow up. Now, and obviously it's not water, but
so that's the thing.
It still blows my mind.
So that's the thing is like that's how new you are, dude. Liquid cooling for personal computers has been around since the late 90s to early 2000s, and it was incredibly expensive. Like all the cooling blocks were expensive. The only choices you had back then were if they were copper based or if they were aluminum based. But you had to have giant radiators hanging off the back of your thing. But everybody initially started off with water cooling. But then, of course, just like all plumbing systems, you eventually spring a leak, your computer's completely fried. So what they did was they found out that if you can use absolute reverse osmosis water, and as long as the plumbing is clean, then you can't fry your computer with it. Water itself doesn't carry an electrical charge. It's the actual elements inside the water that carry an electrical charge. But even then they started moving to liquids now. Like all the stuff you see now is just non-conductive liquids, period.
Have you heard of the company Corsair, the gaming company?
I know Corsair very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you have to go, it'll blow your mind away to go into their lobby. They have this huge center with cooling and liquid cooling throughout. It's beautiful. I mean, they've done a great job, and they have it all in their lobby upstairs. It's an amazing thing.
Do they have it all filled with like UV dye and then black lights on them and stuff like that? So it's all cool. Yeah.
It's very cool.
The problem is back when I was a kid and I was building computers, and you're talking about, and I'm bringing out the old nerd in me now, but when I was building computers, man, the last computer I built, and this is how long ago it was. The last computer I built in 2008, and I used that computer all the way through 2017. So I used it for 9 years, and they're so modular. You can always just upgrade just keep the board and upgrade everything as you go until you just get beyond it. But even then, the board I bought back in 2008 could handle all the way up to 64 megs of RAM, which was just unthinkable in 2008. Everybody's like, 64 gigs of RAM. What do you need that for? Now my base computer is 64 gigs, but to build a computer equivalent to that today, for me personally to build it, would cost me $6,000 or $7,000.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah. And as much as I love games, I don't have enough time, and I prefer ammo.
You traded it in. Much simpler. Much simpler. Speaking of that, let me I said I wasn't going to ask any hard questions. I don't think this is a hard question, but you always hear in the news about the effects of Taiwan. So and we're not going to get into politics of it, but how big of a deal is it if China does decide to invade Taiwan for the American market, and specifically electronics and components? How big of an effect is that going to be? And do you see anything in the market where the U.S. is actually pivoting to bring some of that back or do something to negate the effects of that besides just defending Taiwan?
Good question. The main supplier of all foundry, which goes into everything, is TSMC, which is in Taiwan. So that everybody uses that. I mean, you name it. Used to be lots of foundries. Even Toshiba used to have their own foundry, but not anymore. So Intel, you're hearing a lot of stuff about Intel and a lot of bad mouthing of Intel, but the guy's actually pretty brilliant. He's going to start his own nodes to compete with TSMC. So that he's the first guy in the US that's doing that. So that is really needed. But of course, it's huge investment, right? It's
well, where's he starting this at? Where's his plant location going to be?
He's got a couple of different ones, but I think Texas and somewhere in the Midwest. Yeah. Everybody's building in Texas.
Yeah.
And also somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. So he's still, researching and that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's a killer for us. The only other place you can go, which is much smaller, is Korea. So Samsung's the only other foundry. Everybody else, I mean, they're very tiny, or else they're in Taiwan.
And even then, when you're talking about South Korea, you're not talking about South Korea. You're talking about Seoul. That's it. Like
exactly.
It doesn't. Nothing else comes from any place in South Korea except for Seoul. Everything else is to provide food for Seoul.
Right.
So how is it that we got to this point? You've been in this industry for a long enough period of time, and I understand. And this is going to get a little political, and we always try to avoid politics as much as possible, but in this case, I think it's very important for everybody to know and understand how we got to where we are so that we can try to avoid that in the future. And even though this guy at Intel is about to spend a ton of money, when we say a ton of money, we mean lots of money, like more than we can talk about with, appropriate language. And so the thing is Taiwan kind of took over, and it started here, US based. Every good technology in the world came from the United States. And then China got really, really good. Their people had smaller hands because things got smaller, and they had very small, just the people themselves being smaller skilled labor had the capability. But then Taiwan started mechanizing and using robots. And so how do you see us bringing it back here, and how is it really going to affect the market, and how long do you think it's going to take to really make it make up any difference?
It's going to take a long time, but we got to start, right? And the whole reason it started was purely cost, lower labor, cheaper labor, and also pollutions, right? We have so many environmental rules in the US that, they pushed it out to China, right? Yeah. So now things are much cleaner in semiconductors than they were, but there's still an issue with that. So environmentalists and costs were the two reasons we outsourced it. So, and then it gets so big, and then we taught them, we gave them the technology. So we did it to our own selves, right? So I think Intel making a stand and doing that, and of course it's hit his bottom line, it's hit his stock. They're all saying, "Oh, Intel's going out of business," but he's smart, right? He knows what he's doing. So somebody has to do it, because if we don't,
he's probably sending emails to China going, "Hey, make sure you invade," because I can tell you what, if they do invade Taiwan, his stock's going to go crazy because he's going to be ahead of the game, and they're going to start dumping money into it. So I think
that's a big thing that people need to be scared of. We're not talking about China beating Taiwan. We're not talking about us not being involved. Right. If Taiwan gets invaded, period, the very first thing they're going to do is target TSM, because they know they can't win the war. They know China's not stupid. They know they can't win. They've got more Navy ships than we do, but their most brand new Navy ship that just got released earlier this year, late last year, is just outclassed by a Ford class supercarrier, and a Ford class supercarrier is 10 years old. Like they can't compete with this. But all they have to do is invade, hit one plant, and it's done.
I think we're going to have a chat JP soon because of how much information I'm realizing he's got in his brain here.
So one of my agents called me yesterday. He goes, "So I'm calling you because you're a wealth of useless knowledge, and I need some help."
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just talking to some people today that do a lot of research about China, and China's really struggling. I mean, they're kind of in a recession right now. And so all the young people, and they don't have a lot of young people, right? Because they don't produce. And are moving here or to Europe. They want to move out of the area. So as quick as they can, they're getting out of the area. So they're in a deep trouble. I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're not talking about like a 10-year recession. We're talking, this is going to be 100-year recession unless they invade and actually win and take over Taiwan. That's the whole one China policy that so many people don't fully understand. Is one China policy is if they don't take Taiwan, China's done. They will not be a superpower for a minimum of 100 years. And now you're talking about the second largest landmass in the world that's struggling just to feed people.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people that can't work because they're in that older age segment. I mean,
exactly.
Which we had to face some of that with the baby boomers here too. So,
but even
no country is
immune
to
it. But even then, like, so even like the kids from the boomers still had an average of 2.3 kids per person.
Yeah, but
they had no. So the problem with my generation is my generation came out, saw their parents struggle, and the problem with kids from boomers was the boomers wanted to make sure their kids didn't struggle, and so they over coddled them, and now you're suffering. I mean, there's a lot of crap that goes into this conversation, but nevertheless, like the thing is yeah, I mean, that's true, but we never had a one child policy. And I mean, we talk about all kinds of things here that happen, but there are parents that refuse to have. Another issue they have is there are parents that refuse to have babies that were girls because they wanted to have a boy. So instead of having a child, they'd go have an abortion and then wait for that boy to come along. And so on top of that, their demographics between male and female are incredibly far off and separated.
Or they adopt the girl out.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue to get back to Cathy and give us some pointers on the fact that, you've been in this game a long time. So you've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of know-how. So give us kind of your biggest mistake that you felt you made and what you learned from it. And then what would be your best bit of advice for somebody who's looking to be an entrepreneur or currently in the game of producing companies?
Okay. I'd say two things. One is I was buying the partners out right at the .com bust. And I don't know if you remember that, but customers were buying millions and millions and millions of units of product. And all of a sudden they go, we don't want anything and we want to ship all this product back. So, and companies were going out of business left and right. And at that time, I mean, we were losing money like crazy. So first, I didn't lay off quick enough. But I did do some smart things. First, I told everybody, I'm going to take your insurance away. I'm going to remove all the, expense reports. You can't expense anything. But I'll give it back to you once the market turns. So, forward to this last year, which I'd say was just as bad as the .com. I'd say it was a technology recession over last year. I saved money for 8 years. So I saved money, which is not good in California because they tax you like it's income, even though it's savings for your business. But it got us through. We didn't have any layoffs. We made it through. And I was fortunate because another rep firm that had 20 people, he closed down. But the good thing is the owner came to me and said, hey, I'd like to come to work for your company. So I got an owner for, like an ROW sales guy. So that was a blessing. I'd say that's number one, is saving money, cutting costs as soon as you see the market turning. Like we saw it a couple of years ago and we started cutting costs, which as you see in California, we didn't. And that's why we went into deficit, right? They thought, okay, the money's just going to keep coming in. So really, really important to be proactive on your cost and savings. And then secondly, when I first became the owner, I had people that were more senior than me that were double E's. And one guy in particular is one of our top salespeople. And I tried to act like a boss, like I'm going to need to do this and, like a manager, and realize that it's better to serve your employees than boss your employees. So I've totally, and I became a Christian at the same time, so that helped me, totally changed my way of dealing with people. I serve my employees. I serve our customers. And so you have loyalty. We're like a family. It made all the difference in the world. Those are the two.
It's funny you say that, because my first company I owned was a tree and landscaping company, and we were doing crazy. I started with one crew and got up to 7 or 8 crews, and before I sold it off to my business partner. And I remember telling someone, asked me kind of the same question, and I didn't even compute until you said that, but it was the same reasoning. I gave the same reasoning as I was a boss, but I wasn't a leader. You'll hear that phrase, that saying as well. And it does make a difference, because if you're telling people to do things, and you're always being told to do something, there's no respect. There's no earned trust. It's almost like a military,
Right.
more of a militarized leadership structure, which is fine for the military. But when you're trying to grow a company, and there's so many options here for people to go to other companies, they don't have to stay with you now. There's not even, honestly, there's not even that much from the companies to the employees anymore either. I mean, you don't have these huge, what are they called? Not 401ks, but what is the word? What is it?
Pensions. Yeah,
Pensions,
there's no more pensions.
There's no pensions. There's no things of that nature anymore. And so,
No.
I think both sides have to earn that respect. And so to become a leader and talking people up rather than talking down is definitely a great way to start. And it makes your life easier.
For me, I think it was an insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy's more senior than me. Now I'm his boss, so I have to boss him. And as soon as I changed that and said, hey, Bob, you know this better than me. What would you recommend? He totally changed. He called me boss lady. We had a great relationship. So that's huge. It really is.
It's hard to trust too when the money's on the line and it's your money. It is a challenge to let go. I think that's great too, that you found Jesus too, because that's kind of what most people need a lot of times, is to let go and have that faith. So we're very pro that.
Well, so there's two people that really bring what you were talking about from the first purchase all the way through. So making it through the 2003, 2004 era, the .com bust. You come in, you buy low. Obviously, you make your money when you buy. You come in, you buy out your partners. You figure out how to make it. But the thing that I liked the most to hear about it was you didn't have mass layoffs. Like, you still need your workforce if you want to survive. So how do you make it? You get everybody together and say, look, I want you to work for me, but I can't afford all the stuff we could afford 2 years ago. And so we have to start cutting back. And I'm not talking about coffee, people. Like, and you're talking some major things. Yeah. So like, if you're working for a company and they start cost cutting with coffee, find another job, because it's about to go crazy.
Right.
I've actually worked for one of those companies, and I got laid off about 2 months later. But the other thing is through this second recession that you guys have been dealing with, and just now starting to see the ramp out, is Joseph of Abraham. And if you don't know the story, and I don't know how long ago you found your faith, but it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, is Joseph of Abraham. And Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, right? Yeah. And the only reason he made it out, and he wound up being the Pharaoh's right-hand man, was because he interpreted the dreams. The seven fat calves and the 7 lean calves, and the 7 lean calves ate the 7 fat calves. And so is this preparation that, hey guys, I'm paying extra taxes to make sure that I'm prepared for this next go round, because it's not build a boat because it might rain, build a boat because it's gonna rain. It's just when.
And in that story, there's 2 things he had, right? Faith and humility. Even when the wife, came after him and said he was trying to go after her, they put him in jail. He was humble. He never said, hey, do you know who I am? He was very humble.
Yep.
And even when his brothers came, right?
Yep.
He served them. He was loving to them. He said, no, I'm not going to do anything. It was God's will. Not, you didn't do anything to me. That was God. So you have to admire him.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So I have a lot of appreciation for your path, and I think it just proves that the other person I guess I meant to bring up is Simon Sinek. Um, Simon Sinek is the writer of the Big Why. He has one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, and in his most watched TED Talk of all time, the Big Why, he takes and really talks about the companies that have truly made it. Um, we're not talking about circuit cities and stuff like that, but you go and you look at it was General Electric being one of them, where they always put their employees first. If they needed extra money, the first thing they cut wasn't coffee breaks. The first thing they cut was executive bonuses. And then after executive bonuses, okay, guys, we got to get rid of some of the other things. We've got to get rid of this. Maybe we can't afford dental insurance right now. You have health insurance or whatever it is to try to cut down to the bone, but keep and maintain the employee so that they still have a job. That's a big deal.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the one thing I didn't mention was the first thing I cut was my own salary.
Yeah.
So it was tough because I'm paying off the partners and borrowing money against my house to pay them. But I told the employees, I'm going to cut my own salary first, right? I'm not cutting yours, but here's what we're going to do. And I think because of that, they went, okay, we're all in, right?
Amen.
You need that buy-in. And it's way more expensive to replace employees than it is to keep the ones you have, with the existence of the connections they already have, with the education that they already have within your product. I mean, it's just so much easier to keep. And I see so many companies fail at that too. Just getting rid of the turnover is insane. In fact, speaking of, banking is actually turning that route. I've never seen so much turnover within banking, and people don't realize how much that industry is changing right now. And I think it's negatively changing to an extent, especially with the bigger banks, but we won't get into that today.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the whole recession together. It's not just been a recession for them. It's been a recession for everybody. I mean, we talk about, I notice this every day. Today, I mean, it sounds crazy, and I'm a Southern guy. So today I wanted to have a special breakfast. So I went and bought a T-bone steak and eggs. Well, every dude from the South, also the one thing he wants is some grits. So I went and went to go get me some grits. Unfortunately, it was instant grits. I'm not going to lie, but nevertheless, the packaging has gotten so much smaller. So not only has the price inflated, I got a loaf of bread. I mean, you talk about thinner. I could barely touch the plastic on the loaf of bread. Otherwise it tears. Like, everybody's looking for cost cutting measures everywhere. And it's just insane. So it's not just there, it's everywhere. Because of that, real estate agents, thank God, they're disappearing. We had way too many real estate agents back when you could walk up, think about taking a picture of a house, take a picture of the wrong house, and still sell that same house in freaking 30 seconds. But yeah. So where do you see the industry? I mean, like, it takes a lot for somebody to want to come in and truly fall in love. Because if you want to be a salesperson, you got to love what you're selling.
You got to believe in your product.
Never sell it. So where do you see this? You have obviously have enough knowledge of what's coming, and you've made it through 2 recessions. The next one is coming, but before that, we're about to see a massive explosion. Outside of cooling and hard drive space, hard disk space, and buses, where do you see this expansion going?
Well, I kind of am concerned about that, because we're not seeing any other space grow. Literally, it's just data center, the hyperscalers, AI, right? We're not seeing the consumer or the industrial grow, which makes me think we might be in for another downturn, which I hate to say because it seems so strong right now, but I'm just being cautious and preparing for that. I think we really are in a recession in the US. And I just don't think people are talking about it. So, because in tech, for example, I mentor college students, especially the engineers at San Jose State and Santa Clara University. I have them at my house. In fact, I'll have a group at Thanksgiving. They're international students. They don't have family here. So I always invite them over and we mentor them. Well, it used to be engineers. I could get a job as soon as they graduate. Now, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get them jobs. So hiring people is really, really down in the Bay Area. And we're still seeing layoffs. Amazon's going to have another layoff. Meta's having a layoff. Google's having another layoff. So we're not seeing it stop. So I really think we're in for a downturn before it's an upturn. And
incomes have got to come up, because I mean, you think about tech, and yeah, there's a lot of things that are necessary to run the world, but a lot of it is also wants: cell phones, gaming, all this other stuff. If you don't have those things going, it's going to be a major hit. And I just don't see. I agree with you. I think inflation is really high, and then on top of that, income has not increased to match that. So, what are people cutting? Well, they're cutting technology as much as they can. They're cutting all those bigger TVs and bigger phones and all that other stuff. So there's not I'm not getting a new phone every year or every 2 years. I'm getting a phone every 6 years now. So, I kind of agree with you.
So here's the thing. I think that I agree. And I also think that we have a chance to skip it. And I think that where we have a chance at skipping it is all going to hinge on what happens November 5th.
I agree. Totally.
And I don't, and the reason I say that is because one of the spaces that AI has started just dabbling in, but hasn't taken a lot of foothold because of the expense and the EPA regulations and all that stuff, is manufacturing back here in the United States. And that the powder 3D printing in metal, and then the liquid 3D printing through resins is at a point where we are this close to scaling up and being able to actually go through and truly manufacture one-of-a-kind, one-off, solid piece parts, things that we've never seen or thought of would be able to do before. A knee replacement right now is a single titanium piece that is made on a 5-axis CAM machine or CAD machine, right? And so it's this 5-axis milling machine that does all the work. But that same knee replacement that actually can be made better, more responsive for the body out of a resin, can be printed twice as fast for half as cheap, last twice as long in the body. And yet we're not doing it just because of the expense, and we can't do it on a massive scale. But AI is going to be what really drives manufacturing in the United States if we can open that sector up. But that means we need money, time, talent, and deregulation.
Absolutely.
And correcting the trade imbalances.
And we have to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is China, like we just got done talking about, China's not going to do it. So this is a potential global recession that we're looking at on November 5th. And I'm not going to try to tell anybody who to vote for, that you vote for who you want to vote for, but the regulation of the United States that's being put, or the regulations being put on effect in the United States, are affecting the whole globe, especially with the way China is failing right now.
Absolutely. Would agree with you.
So, man, we blew through 45 minutes quick. I don't know that we got enough information from you, and I apologize if I wound up speaking way too much.
I just want to say one more comment, if I may.
Absolutely.
So if you haven't been involved, Faith Driven Entrepreneur is an amazing organization. It's worldwide. It's all these business leaders that dedicate their companies to Christ and that take care of their employees. And they have, from tomatoes in the store, probably you buy their tomatoes, to building running shoes and landscape companies and all kinds of companies. If you've never been involved, just look up one of their YouTube videos and you'll be blown away. And I got involved, and it was in an 8-week series. And there was people from Africa and people from Washington, D.C. and people from Virginia. And we all learn from each other. And in fact, I mentor one of the people now, but it's an amazing organization. especially if you're Christ-based and you want to give back and help people out.
I think that's amazing. And you know what? I've never thought about, I know you've talked about this organization before. I know you've said something about this before in our conversations. But, you know, if you think about the one thing that everybody disagrees with in this, or everybody has a separate side on this in the country, is capitalism. And I believe capitalism still is one of the best ways of doing business. The problem is ethics, is that you have people chasing greed over the ethical side of the company and doing what's right. And I wish we did have more support with faith in business, not just supporting churches, which we're not doing that great of either, but, you know, supporting it in business, because that is the main thing that I think corrupts these companies, is they stop forgetting that there's something bigger than them, and they just want that money, and they make stupid mistakes, and they know they're stupid mistakes. So that's a great thing. Yeah, we'll definitely we'll post that out. I think that's a great organization to plug.
I've got it scrolling across the bottom right now, faithdrivenentrepreneur.org.
It's going out to all 2 million of our followers.
But
one day.
I think one of the things that you're not wrong on, but also it doesn't take a Christian to be a good person, right? So like,
right.
I don't mind. It doesn't bother me to say something controversial. I have a friend of mine that's a very good person, and it makes him very angry that he can't go to heaven if he doesn't believe in Jesus Christ, even though he's a good person. And he doesn't understand it, and he struggles. He really struggles with that. Where we shouldn't be struggling is the support or the lack of support for people who operate horrible business models. We even as good people, regardless whether you're being Christian or not, we lack the faith in the rest of humanity to make up for the fact that they're doing something bad. I love Elon Musk, but I'll bring it up just because of the whole thing. Like, Elon Musk brings out Tesla, and now all of a sudden everybody wants to have an electric car, but they don't actually look at the long-term environmental issues that the electric cars bring out, right? So you go look at the second largest strip mine on the planet is right there in, I think it's in Siberia or Russia, China, one of the two, right there on the border. And it's visible from space. It is this massive lithium mine. And then on top of that, after the battery is depleted, what do you do with the battery? This is toxic.
Horrible. Horrible. You can't.
That's why you need to invest in energyx.com. No, I just invested in them too, because I was like, man, we don't have a way to recycle, you know, these valuable minerals, and hopefully they've got, you know, hopefully, and I'm not saying that you need to invest in that. That was a joke. I've personally done it, but I want to make sure I'm not telling anyone to invest.
You put your money where your mouth is. You put your money where your mouth is.
But exactly for that reason, it's because of that. You know, but that goes to the bigger picture too, that, you know, we have to understand that in order to do great things and environmental things, we have to have a good, strong economy. If we overregulate, we don't get good, strong technology that develops those things that can help us get cleaner and safer. And companies want to do that. They're eventually forced to do that based on profits alone.
So one of the only good parts about any kind of recession or any kind of struggle is, what does struggle produce? Innovation.
Absolutely.
Well, people have already seen that lithium is dirty, not very stable, and then on top of that, it's running out very quickly. And so, like the new batteries, Toshiba is actually one of the leaders in new batteries, and that new battery is called the graphene battery. And those new graphene batteries still use lithium, but very, very little by comparison. And they're producing far, far more energy density than lithium ion and lithium polymer batteries are. And the things they're doing on top of that, we're talking about reducing the weight of that same capacity, voltage, and discharge rate battery in a quarter. It's a quarter of the size of these current lithium ion batteries. It's amazing.
How do you know all this? You know so much. My God, I'm so impressed.
I told you it's Chat JP.
So, I mean, so it's a lot of it is because when I was a kid growing up, the one thing my dad always taught me is you can be a specialist and talk to people that are specialized in that, or you can know a little bit about everything and talk to anybody in the world. And so you want to you can. I've raced RC cars. That's how I started getting into the battery technology. Was racing RC cars. You start doing a lot of research on who makes the battery, why is the battery good, because they're so expensive. You're talking about, for one of my RC car batteries for my race buggy was, $140 to $180. It's like, why am I spending this much money on this little freaking brick? It's ridiculous. And so then you go through and you research companies that go, okay, well, yeah, these batteries come from China, but they bring them in here, they match them, because that's a whole nother thing. People don't know the difference between matching or whether they are and aren't matched, and creating more efficient batteries. Doing that research, running across graphene. I mean, we're talking, I haven't raced cars in 7 years, and they were doing graphene batteries back then. And the research was very fresh back then. And now it's just blowing up. You want to talk about guns? I do a lot of research on guns too, and cars and computers. Here lately, I've been doing a lot of research on marketing materials for my business. So it kind of do a little of everything. We do that quite a bit too.
If you ever want to pick someone's brain about AI, I have an AI software engineer that works for me.
Well, we need that guy. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I brought him on board because, believe it or not, at the end of last year, he couldn't get a job. It was that bad hiring. And if he didn't get a job, he had to go back to India. So I said, come to work for my company and you can do some AI stuff. Like, he made a little chat guy on my.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. He did all that. And then
I was like, she's automating.
And because I told him, you can interview while you're there. He goes, you know what? I just like it here so much. Would you hire me in sales? And he's doing great now. He's one of my sales guys, and he's amazing. Awesome. That he knows he loves that stuff.
Absolutely. I'd love to have him on. And if you need another AI guy, I got one for you. And he's got the greatest name ever. A dude named Geronimo. I'm not joking. The guy, he was going to be our AI guy. We were going to bring on, he worked for, I can't even remember the name of the company he worked for, but he worked for a company that did work for Google and Apple both on testing their AI. And he's one of those guys. He's such an AI nerd that when you say AI, he gets mad. He's not, it's not AI, it's thinking machines. I'm like, all right, dude, my bad.
Hey, speaking of education, to round this up too, but how do you feel since you talk about hiring and you've got people coming through the market on more technical positions? How do you feel the technical market is it staying about the same? Do you feel like they're lacking in education? I know even when I got out of school, I remember I took the dumbest math because when I transferred in, they wouldn't take my math credit. And this was 2001 at TCU. And I remember being in that class going, how did some of these people make it out of high school? So that was almost 20 years ago now. So how do you see the technical side of kids coming out?
I see, but they're almost all international, barely any from here. But I see very high rate. In fact, they're having troubles getting jobs. There's so many, right? Especially from India, because I kind of witnessed to that group. So I have I'm just hiring another engineer. He works for a big company, which I won't name because he hasn't resigned yet. But he's only been there a couple of years and he just hates being an engineer. And he wants to be around people. He said, the most fun I have is when I'm talking to a customer when there's a problem. So they get into that and they're working 12-hour days and you have to be in the office. And so I'm getting people approach me that want to go into sales, really talented engineers.
That's awesome. And that's a hard, the type of brain is kind of two different ways on some engineers. Cause I remember I was in product development and in manufacturing, and some of these guys you'd speak to are just so dry, so numbers driven. There's no conversation. I think, in fact, the only time I broke through on one of them was I found out he was a gamer. I research people. I love to find what breaks them and gets them talking. And I talked to this cat for 3-4 months trying to get a meeting, and he just talked to me on the phone. And I finally found out on YouTube that he had all these games listed on YouTube, or this one game listed on YouTube, and all these instructional videos. So I called him around Christmas time. I was like, yeah, my wife's getting me a PlayStation. It comes with this game, and I can't remember the name of the game. But I told him the game, and he just lit up and starts talking to me, and that was my in. So I always remember those engineers and how sometimes it was very difficult to get through to them. So the fact that you're finding that crossover of someone who can handle both brains is awesome. Sales and engineering.
It's actually probably not even. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I haven't taken the Sandler test. Sandler is a selling program. It's
Adam
amazing.
Sandler test. Yeah.
Sandler is the best ever. And it tells you your weaknesses and strengths. So I always have them take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at that. Huh.
It's awesome.
It's basically what
we're getting ready to hire a lot of people this next year. So I'm gonna look at that.
You have to pay for it, but it's worth it. It's well worth the investment up front.
Yeah.
It tells you where they fit in your organization. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Tells you what their weakness, strengths are, where you need to, if you need to manage them, if you don't need to manage them, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so, but the thing, I think one of the things that's kind of cool is you're saying that, and I think it's one of the reasons why you see it as them being able to handle both sides. And I think that in reality, that's just not the case. I think in reality is especially when it comes to foreigners coming from India and Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they come over here and they're not asked. They're not like, oh, yeah, I want to go be an engineer in the United States. Their parents are like, you're going to school. You're going to be an engineer.
Absolutely.
That's what you're going to do.
Engineer or a doctor.
Yeah, you're either going to be an engineer or you're going to be a doctor. Those are the only two things you can make money at. And
you're absolutely right.
And then they come out and they're not engineers. They're like, I mean, I'm smart enough to do the math, but I'm not an engineer. I'm a people person. My buddy David Harmon is an electrical engineer. That like he's an actual electrical engineer. They're like, hey, David, how many friends do you have? None. like, dude, I'm one of your friends. No, you're not. And so it's easy to tell if they're an engineer or not. It's like an engineer, it's all about the numbers. They measure everything with a micrometer, mark it with a piece of chalk, and cut it with a chainsaw. Like they don't care about manufacturing. They don't care. This is how it has to be made.
I've even had dinner. I've had dinner with some of these engineers, and the way that they cut their food, like I'm literally watching them. They have this method of how they cut their food to be the most efficient. And I counted them because I noticed that there was this pattern of they'd cut 3, then they eat 3, and then they'd cut, and it was a very specific size. I mean, the which we think it's crazy, but I'm sure they think some of the things we do are crazy too. So
yeah,
and I'm happy for them.
Well, I was just going to say, if you met my guy, you'd never know he was an engineer. Outgoing, fun. Right. He serves the community. He's an amazing young man.
I love those ones. Those type of engineers.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hook us up with him. Like we've got some open spots here in the next month or two. So if he's got some free time and you allow him to take the hour off from 2 to 3 and record with us, man, we really want an AI guy that's one of those super nerds, an AI super nerd that's personable and can honestly talk to it.
Sure.
So
all right, let's give her the final question.
Yeah, so always. All right. So Elrepco. I need a 15-second elevator pitch. Hi, I'm Cathy. I own Elrepco. I'm the CEO of Elrepco. I need a 15-second elevator pitch. Go.
/ value statement.
Hi, I'm Cathy. I'm the owner of Elrepco, and I'm very blessed to work there. We serve the community. We sell to all the technology companies around that, from Meta to Google to Amazon and everybody. And we're so fortunate to do that. And we also have a policy in our company that we get to have time off if we get back to the community. So I always want my company to serve the community and serve our customers. And that's why I love what I do. Thank you.
Awesome.
Amen. Cathy, Elrepco.
Just as good as I thought you did.
Heck yeah, you're awesome. Well, you have a blessed
Thank you so
day.
much for joining us.
We thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
It
Have a
was
good
fun.
one.
And I will see you soon,
Heck yeah.
Cathy.
I'll pray for your
We're
business
talking
too.
about coming out that way.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. See you later.
Awesome.
Bye. You weren't wrong,
Awesome.
dude. She is freaking awesome, dude.
I told you.
I mean, she's
All
your
my
cousin.
awesome.
She's
She's
your
my
cousin.
cousin.
I don't know about you.
Yep.
Got to be kind of questioning it. You know, I have to question. I know you,
I've
dude.
got
I don't
great
just know you.
family. I've got great family. Both sides of my family is pretty dang good.
Outside of
But
finding
Cathy's
your
been
wife,
an
what happened to you?
awesome part of my life. The only thing I regret is that I haven't gotten to see him as much as I would love to, because of the fact that, we're right in the middle, and my dad's side's in New York and my mom's side is in California. So speaking of, even when they moved, I was blessed enough when I did this run for the charity run for the hurricane supplies down in Florida. I got to see my uncle again. It had been 8-9 years, I think, since I had seen him. And this is my godfather, former CEO and chairman of Ingersoll Rand. So very talented people within my family too, that have started from nothing and just pushed their way to the top. And it gives me great inspiration to do the same thing, as well as, good mentors to have in the family. So
yeah.
So yeah.
Man, that was
she
a
was
freaking
awesome.
great interview. She was awesome. I still think
And
I
like the fact that, we got the weave.
Yeah.
We talk about some really good topics, and it's not just all about electrical components. We started with that, had some great conversations on that. But I think the reason people come to this channel and will continue to come to this channel is is not just to learn something new, but to see how they relate. We talked a little bit about faith. We talked a little bit about not necessarily politics, but international politics,
politics, and how things are going on. I mean,
and it's important to know that stuff.
I think it's anybody that's ever watched our podcast, I think they'd have a hard time believing that, number one, we're from Texas, number two, that we're from the Clear Lake area, and number three, that we would be voting for anybody other than Trump. And I'm not a Trump fan. I don't like him. I don't think he's a good person personally. But when it comes to his policies, I just don't see a better choice.
If you're pro business, you're voting for the pro business,
and that's really what it boils down to,
bar none.
Yeah, I'm not voting for a guy to be my pastor. And as much as I wish we could find a more wholesome human being to be in the office, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
well, you think about the protections in this country, the things that we have. I mean, we're all to an extent privileged to live here, to have the jobs that we have, the opportunities we have.
Anybody in the United States, and people don't understand this. And even then, well, just talk about the United States. So many people in the United States have never been to a third world country. I have. You just went to a third world country when you went to North Carolina, seeing all the people with no power, no phones, no nothing, because of the decimation in North Carolina. But people that have never been to a third world country.
We went to Florida.
Yeah.
But North Carolina, we were going to go to North Carolina. I just wanted to correct you. We were going to go to North Carolina, but North Carolina was filled up, and it was a third. I mean, the feedback we got from people was, we got enough supplies. Now it's just infrastructure, because everything's a mess and people are getting robbed and shot and other things. Florida was a little different. They were more prepared, but they still needed the supplies. So we changed our route, and that's why we went to Florida to get those supplies over there. So.
But it's crazy. So when you go to a third world country and you go explore outside of the tourist trap areas, you will find very quickly that the homeless people in our country got it made by comparison to the homeless people there. I watched kids,
or the people that are homed. I mean, you go to Costa Rica, and you get outside the resorts. I mean, the places I've stayed there have been amazing, but the best times I've ever had was going to meet with the people and live with the people and stay out where the people are, go party with where they are. And I mean, they're out sitting at a bus stop in 100-degree heat with hardly any clothes on and sandals, and they're just having a good time talking and chatting. They've either gone to work or not gone to work, whatever. They go back to their house. It's made of cinder blocks with no AC and Maybe it's got a partial roof on it. Maybe it doesn't. Yeah, people don't understand about how much different it is. And Costa Rica is a relatively well-off third world type country. It's progressing. So if you go to a Dominican Republic, you go to a Haiti for sure. You go to
Colombia.
Parts of Puerto Rico, which is a territory.
Yep.
I mean, you go to some of these places and you'll finally start seeing
we haven't even talked about the African continent. Oh my God. Outside of South Africa and Egypt.
And the crazy part is those people are so the people that I've talked to from those countries, even Africa, Nigerians, even, as long as they're not trying to hit me up for money, or I won the lottery.
Yeah.
But the people that I've talked to a couple of graphic designers and some other things that have the ability to get on computers. These guys are so driven. They are so smart. They have nothing to do but learn.
Yeah.
And we're getting lazy. I gotta say for sure, like the younger generation here is better pick up their game, because you will get replaced by these. I mean, just like Cathy had stated, it's more out of country people that are becoming engineers. The people here, they want to be influencers, and 7% of the population is an influencer. But
hey, Daddy, I want to grow up and have a YouTube channel.
1% of that, 1% of the 7% actually makes good money at it. The rest are just doing, just doing what they do. So,
and like for us, we're using this as much as we love talking to all the people that we talk to. This is just another way for us to help push our own businesses. This isn't our business. This is very likely never going to be our primary business. If it ever takes off,
it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy about it. But the point,
I'm sure JP will give us a viral video one of these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've already.
Mine was the best. My bloopers was the best.
It was, but
yeah. How did your nose picking one do? I need to look at that one.
So far, almost 300 views. Almost, not quite.
It was the Aggie. It was the Aggie AI that did the best. So
yes, yeah. So, but dude, it was a great freaking episode, man. I wish Alyssa could have been here. I know she would have had some good questions for her.
Well, we'll get her back on soon. And until then, make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow, leave us comments. As we get more and more subscribers and followers, we'd love to see the feedback. Like I said, our goal one day is to eventually go live. And really the determining factor of that isn't just how many shows we've done, but how much people are participating in the comments.
Yeah.
If we start getting a lot of people participating in comments, that's going to push us to get live a little bit faster, just so that we can facilitate that. So like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. And
let us know what you want to see. Let us know
what you want to see and buy our merch eventually.
You want to be a part of it. Yeah. And let us know if you want to take part. If you want to be, if you feel like you have a business model or a product or something that you've developed, it doesn't matter. We're here to not only support you as stepping stones, but we're also here to help you showcase what you got going on. So
I would love to get a product development story. I might start looking at that, because that was one of the funnest things I ever did as an employee, was working for a product development company, and just seeing these people's ideas come through.
Did you get to play with children's toys?
Some of them were ridiculous. But do what?
Did you get to play with children's toys?
It was always the next best cup. We used to joke about the next best cup.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was always the next best cup, but there was a lot of the next best cups. But no, some crazy stuff. Like, and here, I'll leave y'all with this. I always told people, and this goes with business as well, it's not a matter if you have necessarily the greatest idea, because there's a lot of dumb ideas out there that make millions. For example, one of the ones we had come in was a fortune cookie little finger thing, and they would use it to grab stuff, but it was basically a plastic fortune cookie. That thing sold millions upon millions of units. It was the most silly thing, and it probably did really. This was before COVID. So I can only imagine, if this company was still around when COVID hit, how much they sold on those. But it was $1 million company. Guy that lived next to my uncle in Jupiter, Florida, in Bears Club, Michael Jordan, Celine Dion, and the guy who invented the first residential coffee maker quick coffee maker. I think it was the Coffee Mate. Was it?
Probably Mr. Coffee.
Mr. Coffee. I don't know. It was way back. Guy made millions. Guy made millions. Really cool story. So, and every single one of them.
Everybody knows Robert Kiyosaki. Everybody on the planet knows who Robert Kiyosaki is. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Do you know how he made his first million? A stupid shoe wallet, like one of the wallets that you tie onto your shoe or Velcro onto your shoe.
That's a great idea. No, but the gist of it is you don't stop. You keep going. You've got to be driven. Yep. John Schaefer said it. Don't be afraid to dream. That's the plan. And don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to have failure. You're going to have moments that you fail, but just keep moving forward and don't stop, and that's what we're going to do with this podcast. We're not stopping till we get to 1 million followers.
And we're not stopping there. I mean, I don't know why he said 1 million.
Or I die.
Yeah.
Actually, no, my memorandum episode with JP giving me such a great speech would probably do it. So anyways, all right, like, share, subscribe, follow. Mic drop.